Hi, Taylor T. Carlson here, and time for another Power Rangers Lightning Collection figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at this. This is the Mighty Morphin Yellow Ranger. Of course, in the TV show, she was portrayed by Trini, who sadly passed away in 2001. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and I do apologize if I'm not, but this, I think, was actually one of the earlier figures released in Hasbro's Lightning Collection because it's getting harder and harder to find this one online, which makes me wonder if it's out of print. Again, she was always one of my favorite Rangers back in the early days of the show, so glad I finally managed to get my hands on a figure of her. So we're going to go ahead and crack her open and give this figure a review. Interesting piece of trivia. You may have noticed in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Pink Ranger has a skirt, but the Yellow Ranger, also female, does not. That's because in the original Zyu Ranger footage, the Japanese Super Sentai show that the footage was adapted to for Power Rangers, the Yellow Ranger was a boy, ironically named Boy, B-O-I. So that's why you don't see a skirt on the Yellow Ranger. We're going to go ahead and unbox this, take a look at all these components, and of course I'll give my final verdict and let you know if this one is recommended. Now, one thing I appreciate that they did change with the figure, they at least made her look a little more feminine for the figure, even though it was footage of a male in the costume for Japanese. I mean, you can actually see the outline of breasts here, and definitely a little more slender and feminine of a build. Usually I'm not really a fan of changing things from the show, but in this case it does make it a little more true to the American version. So in this case I support those changes. And go ahead and get out her accessories. Of course, she's got the head here, the unmasked Trini. And like the other Mighty Morphin figures, she has her blade blaster. We'll go ahead and put this in our holster and then look at the figure as a whole later. Her default hands are two gripping hands for her weapons, but we also have a karate chop hand here and another like looser gripping hand here. Don't really see many in this style in the Lightning Collection, so this must be an earlier figure. And then we have her signature weapon from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, that of course being the Power Daggers. Although in one episode she calls them something else. She either says Dino Daggers or Diamond Daggers. I'm not sure what she says, but we'll just go with Power Daggers because that's the default name that's usually used for these weapons. And to go with the daggers, as with a lot of the stuff that's in the Lightning Collection, we have these energy bolts that can fit on the end of the daggers for various effects and poses. So we'll start off, we'll just cover this figure from head to toe, and then we'll try out a few of the accessories. So just a general close-up of the figure. The sculpt on this figure is very good. The helmet looks great. Body looks great. Like I said, they made it a little more feminine because the Yellow Ranger was a male in Zyu Ranger. And then you got her lower body here. Take a look at the back. And like I said, I put the blade blaster in her holster earlier. And we'll try out a few of these accessories and try interchanging a few things. I just took the head off. We'll put on the unmasked head. And like I said, sometimes it's a pain getting these on because you got to push pretty hard. And there we go. We got her on without too much trouble there. I'm going to go through and just cover the points of articulation before we get to the accessories. So again, like most of the figures in this collection, the head swivels left and right, can rotate up and down. She's got a pretty thick head of long hair on the back, which does somewhat impede the articulation when she's got the unmorphed Trini head on, but I'm actually impressed with how her head looks. It's a pretty good likeness of Trini. And then her arms, of course, are, they're the ball joint arms, so they allow for some flexibility. The one on the left seems to be a little more stiff and rigid, but that might just be because it's a newer figure that I picked up. And same deal over here. And then the elbows are also articulated on that side as well. The wrists swivel, elbows swivel. Like I said before, we've got some interchangeable hands as well, so we'll take a look at those. And then, like most of the Lightning Collection as well, her torso swivels somewhat and can also rotate here, which makes for some better and more interesting poses than a lot of the older figures. He's got ball joint legs as well, knee articulation. And again, these are a little stiff, but it might just be because it's a pretty new figure. Yeah, her boots can be rotated. And then there's, some ball joint articulation in the feet as well. Okay, now we'll try out a few of these accessories. Why don't we start out, since she's got it in her holster already, with the Blade Blaster. And like I said, there's two gripping hands here. There's a smaller grip, and then there's that bigger, wider grip that I showed you on the other hand. So, trying to get this in here just right, and sometimes that can be difficult. Okay, there we are. We got our Blade Blaster in our hands. Disappointingly, the figures of the Mighty Morphin Rangers, they only include the Blade Blaster in the gun formation. They don't include the blade formation where they melee attack their enemies, so that's a little disappointing. But again, that's common across the board when it comes to this particular line of figures. Got her daggers here that I showed off earlier. We're going to put those in her hands now and see how they look. One thing I did notice about these daggers, they're way too soft, so they bend really easily. I can understand them wanting to do this because they didn't want something that was so rigid that if you bend it too hard it would break, but it also makes the daggers look a little less impressive as a result. But we'll get these daggers in our hands. And there we go. We got them in there without too much trouble. Now, one other complaint I did have about this figure, it's got the, effect lightning pieces to put on the ends of the weapons, like with the other figures in the Lightning collection, but the problem is she has tiny little weapons, and they didn't bother making the effects pieces for these any smaller. The problem with this is, when you go ahead and put these on the ends of her daggers, it no longer looks like she's holding daggers. It looks like she's holding sparklers and she's celebrating the 4th of July. I mean, it's a damn shame because I think if they'd made little smaller spark pieces, this would have looked pretty cool. But instead we got what basically equate to sparklers, for better or for worse. And only thing left to look at here, we got to do the alternate hands. Actually got those off without too much trouble. And like a lot of the Lightning collection figures, one of the hands she has is this karate chop hand. So we'll get that one on first. It goes on her left hand. So there we got our little karate hand going there. And in our other hand, other right hand, is a looser gripping hand, like I showed off earlier. Kind of an odd position. This might be more for like the Blade Blaster, if you wanted to put that in there. When I showed off the Blade Blaster earlier, I put it in the smaller gripping hand that was on the figure by default. But yeah, we can put that in there, and that fits in there pretty well. And just for kicks, I'll try fitting a dagger in that hand. And yes, you can hold the dagger in that hand. Unfortunately, they are a little loose, but it works. It's doable. And I'll go ahead and put her regular head back on before I conclude the review. And there we are with in all her saber-toothed tiger glory. So overall, aside from the fact that, the daggers are a little soft, you only get the Blade Blaster in the gun formation, and the spark pieces are too big for her daggers and make them look like 4th of July sparklers, I would say this is a very good figure overall, and it's getting harder to find in stores and on sites like eBay and Amazon, so if you find one of these, I would say snatch it up while you can. What is your opinion of this figure if you've picked it up? Have you been collecting anything else from the Power Rangers Lightning collection? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new reviews and unboxings and so forth for things like toys, games, comics, figures, movies, the list goes on. And remember to give this video a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.